Night on Inside City Hall.
This is my first snow day of my life.
And how's it been?
Great.
The city is digging out after seeing the heaviest snowfall in nearly 5 years. The winter storm marked the first major test for the new Mamdani administration.
We know that the fear that so many are living with in Minneapolis, it's a fear that New Yorkers are also living with.
Mayor Mamdani and other city officials are condemning the fatal shooting of another U.S. citizen by federal agents in Minneapolis. I'll talk more about the Trump administration's immigration enforcement with an immigration law professor. And finally, in response to the Minneapolis killings, Democratic senators are a bill for the Department of Homeland Security that could cause a partial government shutdown. For the best news, debate, and analysis of New York politics, join us inside City Hall. Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Monday, January 26, 2026. I'm Errol Lewis. With less than a month on the job, Mayor Zohran Mamdani had to handle a massive snowstorm response over the weekend. By Monday morning, he was reporting that every street in the city had been plowed multiple times. Our Ayanna Harry took a look at how City Hall weathered the storm and joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Ayanna.
Good evening, Errol. From working in the heart of the city's emergency management response center to helping dig out drivers stranded on the side of the road, Zohran Mamdani sought to show off his leadership skills in the face of a fierce winter storm. It was his first major test as the 34-year-old mayor of the biggest city in the country. As the 5 boroughs braced for a 1-2 punch of deep snow and a bone-chilling freeze, Mayor Zohran Mamdani led with an aggressive communication style, updating New Yorkers on TV.
We are speaking of more than 700 salt spreaders.
And on social media.
A big winter storm is headed our way.
While also taking a hands-on approach with the city's workforce. And while the mayor said he'll leave it up to New Yorkers to give the city's winter storm response a grade, he did note.
Today, our city is up and running, thanks to the plans we put in place and the countless city workers who delivered on them.
The mayor's Monday morning press briefing capped off a whirlwind 24 hours.
Yesterday, the first snowfall hit Staten Island at 5 a.m. Sanitation trucks were out salting across the city at 5:10 a.m.
By 6 a.m., Mamdani spoke with sanitation workers during their shift change.
From there, at the shift change, we went to Central Park, where we saw a number of other workers who were hard at work shoveling.
By 12:30 in the afternoon, the mayor was inside the city's Emergency Management Operations Center in Brooklyn, providing a winter weather update. Next, the mayor made stops throughout the city for a more grassroots approach, shovel in hand.
We met a man whose tires were far too low and he was not able to drive through the street. So we shoveled, we got him out.
By Monday morning, the next serious challenge had already arrived. Crews are racing to melt snow as the city enters a stretch of bone-chilling cold. Mamdani's top priority now, keeping New Yorkers safe and warm as an enhanced Code Blue continues.
Outreach teams are only intensifying their efforts today to connect vulnerable New Yorkers to shelter. This is an all-hands-on-deck effort.
During this enhanced Code Blue, so far 170 New Yorkers have been moved from outside in the cold inside to warmer spaces. However, 8 New Yorkers have been found dead amongst the frigid temperatures. The mayor noting several of those New Yorkers have had a past history and past interaction with the city's shelter system, Errol.
Yeah, that is tragic. And there may be more, in fact, right? I mean, we're going to have cold weather for quite a while now.
Yeah, cold weather through much of the rest of this week, with the temperatures not anticipated to rise above freezing. And so that's part of the reason why the mayor is also asking New Yorkers, if you see someone outside, it looks like they may need help, they may need to be indoors, simply call 311. That's how outreach teams are being guided to know where to go, where to respond, and there are also clinical workers with them. So if a person is resisting going inside, but the clinical worker feels like they might need to be inside, they can also step in with an involuntary removal.
Anecdotally, it seemed like a lot of the communications really succeeded. I was riding the C train this afternoon, and there was like kind of nobody there, meaning people took home the message that if you don't need to be out, you really should stay home.
Absolutely. And, you know, many New Yorkers might have looked out of their windows this morning. You see blacktop, you see cars moving. All of the streets were plowed multiple times, so it could seem like, hey, let me go take the car for a spin. But, you know, having to navigate through the city myself, the roads truly were slick. And so the mayor called on people, unless you are part of the emergency response or you have to go to work, just stay inside.
Okay. Thanks very much, Ayanna. Today was a remote learning day for most students in the city's public school system. And while some parents and students reported problems logging in, top officials, including Mayor Mamdani, declared the day a success. Our Bobby Kuza joins me now with that part of the story. Good evening, Bobby.
Good evening, Errol. And this was not without controversy. Some people thought that there should be a traditional snow day where kids didn't have to worry about class. Some people were worried about the system capacity. Personally, I thought left out of this conversation was how parents were supposed to deal with juggling, having their kids home without school. But in any case, remote learning went forward, and Mayor Mamdani and city officials gave themselves high marks for how it went.
Public school buildings and schoolyards were eerily quiet Monday, but while schools were closed, that didn't mean students didn't have class.
How are we doing?
Altogether, about 375,000 students and parents logged in virtually, according to the Department of Education, close to 80% of those expected on the first day of remote learning in 2 years.
Things have gone very well this morning. It was a smooth start to the day. Students were able to log into their virtual classroom quickly and get right into their school day.
City officials tried it out themselves, with Mayor Mamdani dropping in on a 5th grade class at PS 182 in Manhattan. That's him on the bottom row, second from the right, reading to students.
After breakfast, he called to his friend from across the hall, and they went out together into the deep, deep snow.
Mamdani said he decided against a traditional snow day because there's little flexibility to add makeup days at the end of the school year, given the high number of school holidays.
I did visit a classroom this morning remotely alongside the chancellor and reiterated my offer to students that they could pelt me in the face with a snowball. They were very excited about that and asked for a time and place. I said, you can find me anywhere in New York City.
Many parents and students did report problems logging in to Google Classroom, but the DOE called those minor hiccups and said it worked closely with Google and eventually resolved any issues. Michael Mulgrew is head of the city's teachers union.
Overall, very smooth. Of all the different platforms and devices we use, there seems that we're getting some reports about one of the Google Classroom was the only one with a little wrinkle in it.
Meanwhile, the mayor said 8,000 workers were deployed to ensure schools were in good enough shape to reopen on Tuesday.
And some students already had a scheduled day off today, those in high school and in 6 through 12 schools, so they had no classes. In any case, also, we were having a conversation in the newsroom about whether 80% is a good number of those logging in for virtual class. And if you look it up on any normal school day, the absentee rate is typically about 89%. So 80, 89, I think it's not too bad in terms of the numbers they got on.
I was going to say you could go back to the old pandemic days, right? Where that was what they had to do every day. And I don't know if that was an unusual number for those days.
Yeah, and back in those days, there were many families who decided they were just going to drop out of the system altogether. There was homeschooling. There were those who just, you know, sort of went vanishing from the school system. So I think all things considered, the attendance was high. I don't know whether that means any productive learning happened in every case. And I think it also varied, you know, by grade level, because a lot of, you know, there's very different type of learning happening in a virtual kindergarten classroom than there was in, say, an 8th grade classroom, where, you know, the academics are a lot more rigorous.
And of course, tomorrow, which will be in person, very important, because in addition to the learning, a lot of people are getting 1 or possibly 2 meals of their day at school.
Yeah, that's right. And also remember, you know, schools are an essential part of the community. And in fact, during these last couple of days, there was a number of schools in each borough that were designated for people to come in, and they were sort of like warmth centers, sort of the flip side of the cooling centers we have during the summer. So some of these schools were put to use, and yes, there are a lot of reasons why it's good for families to have their kids in school.
All right, thanks very much, Bobby. We are going to take a short break now. When we come back, some Republican lawmakers are joining Democrats in calling out the tactics used by federal agents after another fatal shooting of an American citizen in Minneapolis. We'll bring you a report from Washington, D.C. Also tonight, we'll tell you about how New York officials are reacting to the unrest in Minneapolis. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Morning starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
When you're connected with Spectrum, you get 5G and fiber-powered internet combined for the fastest wireless speeds. So you can sweat for the right reasons. It's only the seamless connection you love at home, everywhere you go. It's only everything.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of, they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done it this morning.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters on your smart TV and connected devices. Streaming live 24/7, plus on-demand weather forecast to help you stay prepared. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News, free with your Spectrum or Xfinity subscription. Now available on your favorite devices.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The New York Republican who chairs the House Homeland Security Committee is scheduling a hearing on the administration's immigration enforcement tactics. That's part of a sudden political shift that's taking place after the fatal shooting of a Minneapolis man by immigration agents over the weekend. Shannon Ryan in our Washington, D.C. bureau joins me now with more. Good evening, Shannon.
Good evening to you, Errol. Yes, it's not just New York lawmakers we're seeing this sort of shift among, but even the president himself. He appears to be softening his hard line after this weekend. A growing number of Republicans are joining Democrats, calling to examine the tactics of federal immigration officers after another weekend of bloodshed on the streets of Minneapolis, where 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Preddy was beaten and fatally shot by federal immigration agents.
They killed him?
His killing marks the second deadly shooting in the city since President Donald Trump deployed thousands of agents in what ICE has called the largest immigration operation ever. The shootings have seemingly eroded support for the crackdown among some of the president's allies.
I guess the answer is finally.
Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman, who represents Manhattan and Brooklyn, sits on the House Homeland Security Committee, which is chaired by Congressman Andrew Garbarino, a Long Island Republican who is currently pushing immigration enforcement leaders to testify in front of the group. It's something his counterpart in the Senate, Kentucky Republican Rand Paul, is also efforting.
I think the American people have made their voices and opinions very, very clear that this draconian, secret police, authoritarian, fascist takeover of the federal government is unacceptable.
Monday, President Trump signaled in a call with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz that he may be open to scaling back the number of agents in Minneapolis, while also shaking up leadership, deploying his border czar Tom Homan to the city.
Well, Mr. Homan is the point person for cooperating with state and local authorities.
He clearly has changed his tone, recognizing right now that the American people have had it, and he better change course.
And Errol, this comes after moderate New York Democrat Tom Suozzi recently was one of just 7 Democrats who helped advance ICE and Homeland Security funding, moving that to the Senate last week. Now it appears that he is also starting to back away from that, writing that he failed to view the vote as a referendum on the conduct of ICE.
So now, Shannon, where do those funding bills stand in the Senate?
So right now, Senate Democrats are saying that they want to parse out funding for immigration enforcement efforts from the other 5 government funding bills that stand right now. At this point, it doesn't appear that Republicans are going to do that. And if that's the case, we may see a partial government shutdown come Friday, Errol.
Okay. Thanks very much, Shannon. Meanwhile, New York leaders are reacting to that fatal shooting of a demonstrator by Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis. The response from angry Democrats here includes a demand for changes in policy, as well as a grassroots fundraising campaign, and in the case of one candidate for Congress, immediately flying to Minneapolis. Our Dan Rivoli joins us with that part of the story. Good evening.
Good evening, Errol. The outrage among Democrats here in New York is quite uniform. What is different is how they're approaching this. You have Governor Kathy Hochul calling for Kristi Noem to step down, as well as threatening action to hold federal law enforcement accountable here in New York. Democratic Socialists held an online fundraiser and a mass call for their peers out in the Twin Cities area. And we spoke with Michael Lasher, a state lawmaker who took the first flight to Minneapolis after the shooting.
There are thousands of residents of this city who are coming out to speak out, to protest ICE.
Michael Lasher, an Upper West Side state lawmaker, caught a flight to Minneapolis after a Border Patrol agent there fatally shot Alex Preddy. Lasher has been posting videos.
What can New Yorkers do to provide support to you and your fellow residents of Minnesota?
And learning about resistance tactics.
Yesterday, I spent some time with a state lawmaker driving as part of an ICE patrol.
Lasher is also running for Congress.
I think there are a ton of New Yorkers in the 12th Congressional District and throughout the city whose hearts are with the people of Minneapolis and want themselves to be doing anything they can to support people here.
New York leaders reacted on Sunday. Governor Kathy Hochul wants Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem out and foreshadowed a threat to federal law enforcement and officials.
When these people who have abused the power entrusted to them by their offices are finally out of power, states, including New York, will hold them accountable.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani wants to prevent what's happened in Minneapolis from taking place in New York.
Do you have the power to stop it?
We have a number of tools here in New York City, and whether those tools are the utilization of the courts, or it's the tools of the bully pulpit, or it's the tools of our own city policies.
Congressman Mike Lawler, a Hudson Valley Republican, called for an end to the sanctuary laws.
You need local law enforcement involved in these operations to prevent this type of escalation.
Meanwhile, the city's Democratic Socialists of America organized this mass call.
And we need money to keep people out on the streets fighting ICE.
Raising $40,000 for a local tenants group and the Twin Cities DSA.
You certainly need things like masks and goggles to keep your organs safe from tear gas while you're out showing solidarity.
Meanwhile, as Lasher was learning about Minneapolis's ICE resistance tactics, he was asked about whether there should be physical resistance here in New York.
I don't want anybody not to return home to their family, of course, but I want citizens of goodwill to work together to push back against this regime and to protect their neighbors.
And there was supposed to be a session in Albany for state lawmakers, but it got postponed because of the bad weather. So Lasher says he's looking to catch an early flight Tuesday to get to Albany so he can do his day job. He didn't miss any work that the taxpayers pay him to make it out to Minneapolis, Errol.
Although very interesting, Dan, as a candidate for Congress, obviously he wants to make a connection between what he was doing out there and what he'll do if the voters should send him to Congress. What is that connection?
Well, the connection is the district he's running in is highly Democratic, very liberal, quite progressive, and the candidates have been trying to distinguish themselves on who can fight back against Trump the most. And when you're out of power and you're in the minority, your options are very limited. So they do want to see this more confrontational style that Michael Lasher is doing by going out to Minneapolis. You saw Brad Lander getting arrested down at Federal Plaza during at an immigration court. That's the politics that I think rank and file Democrats want to see. And in that DSA call, you also had two insurgent candidates, one running in Washington Heights on that call, as well as Claire Valdez, who's running for the open seat that's being led by Nydia Velázquez. So the progressives and the socialists are making concerted effort to bring this back to New York and make it part of their politics.
Okay, thanks very much, Dan. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we'll bring you the details of how the city's public transit system held up after the biggest snowfall in years. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she over and over. Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard. At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Hall with more on the aftermath of yesterday's big snowstorm. Today, the MTA managed to keep subway and bus service running for the most part with only minor delays. New York One Transit reporter Samantha Liebman has the details in this report.
There were some delays Monday morning, like the 3 train, but riders expecting worse after the first major snowfall in the city in 5 years.
Just because of snow, I expected it to happen this whole time, yeah.
So you do have patience, though?
Oh, yeah, I mean, taking the train every day, it's the usual.
I thought, because we're underground, I thought, oh, I don't think it'll affect it. But, I don't know, maybe it's something out of our control.
Some lines run above and below ground, and actually the MTA ran more frequent service on the outdoor lines to keep the tracks from accumulating snow and freezing. But MTA Chair and CEO Jano Lieber on Mornings on One explained why there may still be subway issues.
We're constantly having to slow service down to keep the switches from freezing up.
And MTA workers helped keep service running, clearing snow from subway platforms. The buses had their tires chained. But there are still some problems with buses. Lieber said some staffing issues arose because NJ Transit shut down, and some workers who live in New Jersey couldn't get to work. While buses were running full service, schedules were modified.
Buses, we are actually, the Limited and the Rush and the SBSs are going to stop at every bus stop to make sure that nobody gets left at a bus stop.
But that wasn't the only issue. Mounds of snow from plows which tilt to the right blocked bus stops. The sidewalks were clear and some stops had small paths to get to the bus, but many riders, even by mid-afternoon, had to walk over snow several feet high or wait on the street to board.
Well, I'm going to climb over this mound. I'm prepared for, the snow because I want to go to Central Park. I'm prepared, but I don't know how other people are going to do it.
I feel like a lot of people, especially from here, they go up to the hospital and stuff, and I feel like a lot of elderly people, it's hard getting through there, especially when you don't have the right shoes and stuff.
To be fair, the MTA says they have about 10,000 bus stops. Now, DOT is responsible for bus stops with shelters clearing the sidewalk. This one hasn't been cleared, but sanitation is responsible for anything outside of the curb. And as you can see, there is a huge amount of snow that riders will have to climb to get to the bus. Now, the sanitation department does say they have about 550 emergency hourly workers working hard to get these bus stops clear, but it's just going to take time. In Midtown, Samantha Liebman for Inside City Hall.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, I'll turn back to the frustration with the Trump administration's immigration crackdown when I'm joined by an immigration lawyer and law professor. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Bergman.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing here on the rush hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting the farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my but for my family, my service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Tensions remain high nationwide following the second fatal shooting of an American citizen in Minneapolis over the weekend. As we have reported, Alex Preddy was a registered nurse who worked at a Veterans Affairs hospital in Minneapolis. He was shot and killed by federal agents early on Saturday. Here in New York City, hundreds braved the cold on Saturday to protest Alex Preddy's death and ICE's aggressive tactics. And of course, in the 5 boroughs, federal ICE agents continue to target undocumented immigrants, including many who have pending asylum claims. Mayor Mamdani has vowed to do everything in his power to prevent what he calls horrific actions by federal immigration officers here in New York. Joining me now to talk about where things stand is Professor Laura Mukherjee. She is a law professor and the director of Columbia Law School's Immigrants' Rights Clinic. Good to see you, Professor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
My first question, do armed and masked ICE agents have the legal authority to stop anybody they want in a public place and demand proof of citizenship?
Absolutely not. The Fourth Amendment people on U.S. soil, and that requires a prohibition on unreasonable searches and seizures. This means, according to Supreme Court doctrine, that race must not be used. Race, ethnicity must not be used as a factor in conducting immigration enforcement because that would be violating the law. You know, but this has been complicated by the Supreme Court's opinion in a case called Perdomo Vasquez versus Nome, which was issued in September 2025. In that case, a lower court judge in Los Angeles had prohibited federal law enforcement officers from using apparent race, ethnicity, whether a person speaks Spanish or English with an accent, and several other factors as being factors in whether or not immigration officers conduct stops. And the Supreme Court lifted that prohibition that the federal district court judge had issued. Justice Kavanaugh issued a concurring opinion which seemed to allow racial profiling in immigration enforcement. Justice Kavanaugh has since backed away from that opinion in a footnote that was issued in an opinion in December. So the Supreme Court case is clear. You should not be using racial profiling in conducting immigration enforcement. But what we're seeing across the country every day is that federal officers are in fact using race and ethnicity in carrying out stops.
On a related note, the White House has announced that all green cards granted to people from 19 different countries will be re-examined. They also announced a halt to the processing of green card and naturalization applications from the citizens of those same 19 countries. What has that meant for your clients?
It's had a devastating impact on the clients I represent from countries around the world. These are individuals who have done everything right. They are in the process of becoming U.S. citizens. They have no criminal histories. They have fled horrific violence and are trying to build lives here in the United States. And the Trump administration's recent pause, as you described, has put their lives on hold indefinitely. Now they are fearful every day. Will I be arrested? Will I be detained? Will I be deported to a country that I fled because horrible things have happened to me there? And it has instilled fear in nationals, not just from these 19 countries, but from other countries as well.
You and other immigration attorneys have explained on Spectrum News that these people who are applying for asylum are not, quote, illegals. They are lawfully present as they wait for their claims to be heard. But we've seen multiple stories of applicants being detained, flown out of the country, thrown in jail, either improperly or even mistakenly. What is the remedy for that? Are there going to be civil suits filed?
It has been an extraordinarily difficult time for many asylum seekers and others seeking humanitarian relief in the United States. As we saw with 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos, who was arrested last week with his father, even children and parents are being taken and detained at a family detention center in Dilley, Texas. Over the past year, there have been thousands of children, more than 3,800 children, who have been arrested and detained by federal law enforcement officers. And what we're trying to do on behalf of these children, these families, these individuals who are wrongly arrested and detained is first try to help them with their immigration applications and try and get those immigration applications approved. And second, where it's possible, lawyers are trying to file federal habeas petitions to get people out of detention. And according to a Politico analysis from earlier this month, in more than 1,600 cases, federal judges have ruled against the administration and have ordered the release of non-citizens who were wrongly detained and arrested. So there is overwhelming case law telling the executive branch not to wrongly arrest and detain people, but the executive branch is doing this every day.
Journalists and citizens, especially activists, are taught that recording law enforcement as they do their work in public is legal and is not grounds to be beaten or tear gassed or shot to death or anything like that. But we've seen that happen over and over again. Have the rules changed, or is this another category of the federal government just kind of doing what it wants in contravention of clear court rulings?
The rules haven't changed. The First Amendment protects peaceful protesters and protects the rights of people to observe what is happening in public, to record that, to document that, and to distribute and investigate that. The executive branch in this area and in so many others that touch on immigration is far overstepping its authority that is set up by the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution sets up a system of checks and balances, and the executive branch is overreaching that authority every day. And nowhere are we seeing those excesses more than in the immigration space.
We have reported on, and I've certainly seen over the years, what's called a foot race to the courthouse, that two sides have a constitutional claim, they bring it to court, the court decides it. This seems to be a little bit different, where the federal government knows it's not going to win, or even if there are intermediate rulings that don't go its way, they just continue barreling down the same path. Where is this going to lead?
Eventually, these issues will reach the Supreme Court, and the law is clear, the Constitution is clear. The First Amendment protects the right of all people to engage in peaceful protest. This applies to people regardless of their immigration status. All people on U.S. soil have a right to due process. That due process applies regardless of one's citizenship or immigration status. No one may be summarily detained and deported from the United States because they're out there peacefully protesting and expressing viewpoints that the executive branch doesn't agree with. And everyone on U.S. soil, regardless of U.S. citizenship status or not, has a right to remain silent when they're being interrogated by any law enforcement officers.
So we have a real stress test of the courts and of the Constitution. Is it going to be up to the political branch ultimately to resolve this, do you think?
It will be up to the political branch, but more importantly, it's up to the American people. It is what we, the people, do in this moment that will determine the future of our country. Are we going to be a country that slips day by day closer and closer to an authoritarian state? Or are we a democracy where the views of people nationwide are being taken into account? Across party lines, Americans are overwhelmingly concerned that the executive branch is overreaching, is pushing too far in its immigration crackdown. And there are other signs that Americans are not happy with what the executive branch is doing right now on various measures. So the midterm elections are coming up. And in the meantime, people should be out there peacefully protesting and making their views known.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for now. A lot of food for thought there. Thank you very much, Professor Mukherjee.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, I'll talk more about this topic and many more with two top political consultants. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our Weather on the Ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your Weather on the Ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
I moved from Dallas to Los Angeles all by myself. The order of things I wanted to set up was internet, water, then power. I needed to take a shower, but like I really did need the internet for work and like to watch my shows. That's like kind of a crazy thing to admit in front of a camera. Pretend I didn't say that. I got to Spectrum. I was so relieved that I was getting the best bang for my buck. It was a huge weight taken off of my shoulders.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are continuing to focus on the Trump administration's increased immigration enforcement efforts. Joining me now to talk about the politics of the matter are this week's Consultants Corner. We have Democratic consultants Teresa Gonzalez and Tyrone Stevens. Thank you for being here with us. And I want to pick up where we left off. Those unforgettable images, those killings in Minneapolis. The polling suggests that the public still supports secure borders and the removal of people who are out of status. But nobody likes those ICE tactics that seem rough or even lawless. I guess, Teresa, I'll start with you. How should leaders like Senator Schumer, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, how should they be processing this moment? The Democratic voting base clearly wants some action here.
Yeah, you know, I think it's been understatement. It's an understatement to say it's been eventful. You know, the Trump administration is really kind of instituting this dictatorship that I think personally is a diversion and also in preparation for this midterm year. I think that, you know, Democrats should really lean in on those folks who have found themselves on the kind of this razor's edge of a decision on, you know, whether how they're feeling about what this administration is doing beyond the ICE stuff. Let's forget that for a second. But, you know, there's Venezuela, there have been tariffs and changes and that kind of thing. And so I feel like there's a real opportunity here to kind of grab up some additional folks in this midterm year in terms of voters. But in the meantime, the Trump administration continues to do really scary things that I think will continue to push voters, his general base, in many directions.
And Tyrone Stevens, I mean, this is going to be on the ballot this fall. Governor Hochul has called for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to resign or be impeached. She's asked for the senior Border Patrol official, Greg Bovino, to also step down. And that is in sharp contrast to what her Republican opponent is saying. Bruce Blakeman was here on the show last week, and he's very proud. He was boasting about how his county has the most extensive local cooperation with ICE in the country. So it's safe to say voters are going to be asked to weigh in on this in November.
Well, it's on the ballot, but I think, you know, a good indication of the politics of this is the fact that, you know, I think you're starting to see even some Republican lawmakers, you know, begin to, you know, question or at least being hesitant to strongly defend the sort of the spate of killings and violence in Minnesota. You're seeing, I mean, gun rights groups are calling for a full investigation, traditional MAGA allies. So I do think Republicans, you know, have to think deeply about this and try and really. And you're already seeing, you know, sort of a calculated backtrack from the White House with Bovino announcing today that he's leaving Minnesota and pulling out some agents. You're seeing that at the podium today, Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary at the White House, say when she was asked directly about Secretary Noem, the labeling the latest victim, Alex Preddy, a domestic terrorist, saying that those aren't the president's words. A very pointed distancing. So I think it's an indication that the politics on specifically what's happening in Minnesota isn't going well for Republicans. I would, if I'm not a Republican consultant, but if I were, I would say on this issue, the people, American people, do not support this. This is not what they asked for. Only 47% of the people being detained by ICE have a criminal record. They talked about in the campaign pursuing the criminals, the hardened criminals. That's not what's happening. I do think that they will face real blowback at the ballot box. They're not doing what they said.
Let me ask you about that with Kristi Noem. I assume that if she's going to label somebody a domestic terrorist, that those are talking points that came right out of the Oval Office, basically came out of the White House's inner circle. Are they kind of backing the bus up over her now? Or are they kind of saying, well, wait a minute, that's not necessarily the president's words? Well, whose words would they be? She's not making policy at that level.
Well, I do think it would be deeply with Trump for him to sort of see that line get trotted out and see the swift backlash and then hang her out to dry. I mean, it's not, another indication of how he's distancing himself is the fact he's sending Tom Homan out to Minnesota and making clear he'll report directly to me. Almost sounding like he's, appointing a superior to the Homeland Security Secretary. Right. So, I do think that they're at least starting to lay a foundation for making her the person who takes the fall.
Teresa, going back to what you mentioned before, to the extent that Senator Schumer now faces the choice of whether or not to lead the minority Democratic conference in the Senate to either risk or provoke a government shutdown as a way to either force a negotiation or express outrage with what's going on with the Department of Homeland Security. Is that a bet he should take? Is that an action he should consider?
Wow, what a question. I think we've seen a lot of government shutdown and a lot of movement in government, in our federal government, that have really kind of put people at odds. I don't know. I know that their action needs to be taken. What that looks like remains to be seen. I do want to say one thing about this domestic terrorist conversation. One might consider those very much very much a dog whistle. Again, I think that folks are smart enough to be looking ahead at this midterm year, at elections, and being able to label somebody who was just murdered, quite frankly, a domestic terrorist, really leans into the ultra right-wing conservative base that he so relies on and so relied on January 6th. But back to Schumer, I do think, it's hard to say. I think action needs to be taken. What that looks like remains to be seen, but it needs to be swift and aggressive, and they've not been very much either one of those lately. So there's a decision to be made.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now. I've got more to talk about with these consultants. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
To get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
We had an independent special master draw these lines. These maps couldn't be more fair. In 2024, the governor attempted to redraw the maps again, and in some cases she did. She signed off on these final maps for New York State, and as did the legislature.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where I'm once again joined by my Consultants Corner. We have two Democratic consultants, Teresa Gonzalez and Tyrone Stevens. And that, of course, was Nicole Malliotakis, the incumbent member of Congress from the 11th District, complaining that a judge has tossed that district and ruled that it was a violation of the state constitution. Independent Redistricting Commission has to redraw those lines by February 6th, which is fast approaching. How does that, Tyrone, how does that scramble the equation for the congressional elections this year?
Well, it does give Democrats an opportunity to make that a competitive seat, for sure. I mean, right now you have Dan Goldman and Brad Lander, they're competitors. They could very well be colleagues. So after November. So, that's really, the opportunity. I mean, how Hakeem Jeffries, handles that. I think, that they're at least, beginning to sort of tip the scales to give Goldman an opportunity to run in that district. Obviously, his current district is a tough fight. So, Nicole Malliotakis is right to be concerned about her future because she's going to have a much tougher fight after February 6th.
Although, Teresa, to be clear, 2/3 of the district is going to be Staten Island. The only question is what additional neighborhoods, 200,000, 250,000 or so people, get added to it.
I think we're looking at definitely a Manhattan play. But what's funny about this conversation to me is it's no weirder that we would be adding a neighborhood in Manhattan than we have added a neighborhood in South Brooklyn to this district. I also think, this is really telling of the kind of changing, demographics of this borough that's historically been very conservative and white. We're seeing it become much more diverse. And it's completely fair and appropriate to think about what it means to better garner representation here. I just think the Republicans are mad about it. They've held on to that seat for quite some time comfortably. And now that there's a challenge to it, rightly so, I think, they're going to pull out all the stops to try to stop it from happening.
Okay, let me switch topics and stay with you, Teresa. Representative Nydia Velázquez has been vocal in suggesting that Mayor Mamdani should have deferred or delayed or maybe just rethought his endorsements in the race to succeed Velázquez. Is that just some passing friction between two politicians, or is there something more fundamental going on between leaders of the Democratic Socialists and traditional Democrats?
When La Luchadora speaks, you listen. I think it's what it's telling of is the fact that we have a mayor who is self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist, new mayor, really exciting times for the city, still kind of operating in this sphere where he's entering into these races that have nothing to do with his job. And so I think that the kind of ongoing friction that you see with Congressmember Velázquez will continue as he continues to kind of insert himself in some of these congressional races that, again, are not connected to his decisions as a mayor. And I would venture to say that, you have a big job to do. You're doing a great job so far. Keep focused.
Now, I mean, Tyrone, what makes that a little complicated in that case was that Claire Valdez, who he is supporting for the congressional race, is what we call a day one. She was the only person, or one of the only people, who was standing with him when he announced his run for mayor way back in October of 2024 when he was polling at less than 1%. So he does have some debts that he has to pay. It's just running into this other kind of consideration as well.
For sure. And, listen, he's kind of made it clear that if you were with it, even tacitly, even sort of softly, he puts you on a transition committees, things of that nature. He's going to try even things to that extent. If you're with him on day one, he's been, obviously in the case of Claire Valdez, he's coming out strongly for her, and then obviously doing the same with Brad Lander. But I do think that one thing Nydia Velázquez did say that I think it's a fair piece of caution for the new mayor, which is honeymoons are short, and just what you see today, how high things may be today, they can turn just as quickly. So, having these fights, these inter-party fights, they don't come without any cost. So, tread lightly, understanding that he has some politics to tend to himself in these races. This doesn't have to be a pattern just because, this is, the actions of the moment. And
all right. In our last minute, I'm going to ask each of you to weigh in with a prediction. Governor Hochul is pushing for reform of auto insurance, crackdown on auto insurance fraud, she says. You guys know, as we all do, that this is going to trigger a response from the trial lawyers, one of the most powerful lobbies in Albany. Who wins, the trial lawyers or the governor? You first, Teresa.
Oh, boy. I think, Governor Hochul certainly has incentive to fight hard on this. But I do think that trial lawyers win at this one. They've been working at this for quite some time. They will employ all the stops to make sure this doesn't happen.
What do you think, Tyrone?
It's a tough one. I might be more neutral. I think that the coalition is different in this context, in this moment. Backing Governor Hochul's push, drivers, obviously Uber, you've got drivers who are very concerned about this, and you've seen efforts to address this in other states. So there are some examples.
Oh, interesting. The commercial drivers. I was not even thinking about them. Thank you both for your insights. Great talking with you.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You're done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
You might think Spectrum is just for your home, but Spectrum is seamless connectivity everywhere. It's the network making the other networks sweat. Connectivity from an actual internet company, because it's way more than 5G. With Spectrum One, it's 5G and fiber-powered internet, seamlessly combined for the fastest wireless speeds. Don't believe us? Ask this guy. He's one of millions who already know. Oh yeah, and this guy too. Turns out people like their mobile from a seamless connectivity company. That's why Spectrum is the country's fastest growing mobile provider. Spectrum One. It's only the seamless connection you love at home. Everywhere you go. It's only everything.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. On